They sought to follow what moves without footprints, but they lost themselves in the hunt. There is a curious thing that has been occurring around certain individuals, the ones they name chosen ones. Every few months, someone fresh is assigned to figure you out, study your routines, decipher your patterns, and maybe even find out the secret behind your tranquility. But somehow, each and every one of them says the same thing. I can't explain why I feel this way about this person. You see, energy doesn't lie, but it does hide in plain sight. When your frequency works on divine instruction, rationality falls apart. They can follow your motions, but they can't find your true self. They may follow you, but they can never follow your spirit. You are both seen and not seen, a puzzle in the shape of a person. The funny thing, they are sure of themselves at the outset of their mission, since they believe it's an easy case study. But after a few days of watching, they start to behave like interns at a supernatural internship they didn't even apply for. They can't go to sleep. They start to ponder too much, and before you know it, they're writing in their journals about alignment and vibrations. They don't get that you were never intended to be understood, just seen. The selected ones aren't mysterious because they're concealing. The human mind can handle the frequency of someone who has already left the system, which makes them strange. That's what scares them, not what you're doing, but who you become. They aren't only observing your life. When they keep paying individuals to follow you, they may see their illusions fall apart in real time. And deep inside, they know that every time they try to study your light, it only demonstrates one thing. They were never the one being watched. You were always the one watching. First, they send spies but end up discovering themselves. It always begins the same way. Someone is interested in you. To nosy people are dispatched, pushed, or convinced to figure you out, watch you, study you, and report what makes you different. At first, they assume it's simply a job. You are a puzzle to be solved and a person to be understood. But they never notice how your enthusiasm subtly changes the story, because you can study light without also seeing your own shadow. When people come into your space, something within them begins to move. Their old habits, lies, and masks start to fall apart. You don't even say anything, yet your serenity shows how chaotic they are. Your lucidity shows how confused they are. It's not judgment, it's resonance. Your frequency acts like a mirror, forcing people to face pieces of themselves they've been avoiding for a long time. The task that began out as spying turns into a way to help oneself. That's what they never tell the people who sent them. They came to write down what you said, but they ended up writing down what they thought about themselves. They were meant to tell you about your plans, your actions, and how you were feeling, but all they can say is, something about them feels different. They can't put their finger on it, since it's not anything the intellect can quantify. It's energy, it's consciousness, and it's the truth that is covered in flesh. Something stays even after they depart. They begin to perceive things in a new way. They are questioning things they used to believe. They want peace and quiet now that they used to adore commotion. You didn't tell them what to do. You didn't make them believe you. You moved them. That's what selected energy accomplishes. It wakes up, even while others are watching it. So, when they send spies to watch you, they never come back the same way, since no one can see change without being affected by it. They came to find out your secrets, but they found their own. Second, you are not a mystery. You are a mirror. People frequently think you're hiding something because you're so deep. They assume you must be concealing something since you don't disclose too much. That's not it. However, you're not hard to understand. You are clear. People who live amid cacophony find clarity to be bewildering. They see everything they don't want to see in you, and that makes them uneasy. Your calmness shows how restless they are. Your honesty makes them feel uncomfortable. It's simpler for them to label you mysterious than to accept that they don't see their own mirror in your energy. You undoubtedly know what I mean when I say that others put their own ideas upon you. They assume you're playing games, keeping secrets, or attempting to be hard to read, but you're just being. You are now aware enough that you don't need to perform to be understood. You live by your own truth, not by what others think, and because of it, you break the spell that most others are still attempting to keep. People don't really notice you at first when they glance at you. They see their fears coming back. Your calmness makes them think about their anxiousness. Your ability to manage yourself makes people think about their own turmoil. Your honesty makes them take off their masks. They don't know that it's not your energy that bothers them. They know they've let down their own. You are only a reflection. Mirrors don't lie either. That's why a lot of people have trouble staying with you for long. You don't even have to talk. Just being there shows individuals things they would prefer not know. You're not far away. You're simply genuine. And realness is hard to find these days. You force others to face the pieces of themselves that they hide behind their ego and distractions. So, no, you're not a puzzle to be solved. You are a mirror that has to be looked at. That's why they can't figure you out completely. They aren't ready to view themselves that plainly yet. Number 3, every investigator becomes a fan. Skepticism is usually the first step. They don't trust what they've heard about you, so they want to see for themselves. They come up to you with mistrust, keeping an eye on everything you do, looking for defects, inconsistencies, or a hidden goal. But instead of discovering something phony, they find something they didn't expect. Constancy. You are who you say you are, no matter who is looking. People are disarmed by that level of honesty. It's strange, even unpleasant, since most people are accustomed to lies, not the truth. They come expecting you to be acting, but what surprises them is that you're not. You don't strive to impress or persuade. You don't change who you are to feed in or make things up to get attention. You are what you are. At first, that calm assurance makes them uneasy. Then, little by little, it begins to interest them. The same spirit that made them doubt it is what they start to revere, because being yourself in a society that makes money out of faking gives you power. They'll see that there's no act or secret screenplay the more they see you. It's simply alignment. You live with a goal, not with stress. You don't act on impulse. You act with purpose. And it makes people doubt themselves. How can someone be so calm in a world that is continually moving? How can someone walk through storms and not fall over? They came to get proof, but instead they got inside. Watching you teaches them more about themselves than studying anybody else ever could. In the end, their doubts turn into silent respect. The research becomes a source of inspiration. They begin to take bits of your tranquility, attention, and self-control. They begin to admire what they used to mistrust. They know you're not fortunate because they know you. You have self-control. You didn't pretend to be light. You battled for it. And anybody who really watches you for a while will come to the same conclusion. You don't want to be appreciated, yet you can't help but get it. 4. You can't make up your frequency. People may copy the way you talk, act, and even the way you walk, but they can never copy your frequency. They study your rhythm, your shine, and your presence, assuming that if they imitate enough of what you show them, they'll be able to get to know you better. But energy doesn't function that way. You can't copy what comes from being real. They may say the same things, but they'll always sound empty, since the voice behind them isn't genuine. You got your frequency not because of your rank or training, but because of your experience. You have to restore yourself quietly at night, through the times you choose to develop instead of get back at someone, to be alone instead of among a lot of people, and to tell the truth instead of lying. That procedure gave your energy its sound. It's not charm, it's awareness. It's not charm, it's being clear, and no one can falsify what was made throughout the change. That's why copying never works. They can look at how you act on the outside, but they can't mimic how you feel on the inside. You act based on alignment, not attention. You act on your gut, not on orders. It's not what you do, it's where you do it. People can sense the difference, even if they can't put it into words. They could attempt to deny it, but energy never lies. You either have it or you don't. Some people will even become angry, wanting to be like you, not understanding they were never meant to be. Instead of growing their own light, they pursue yours. But borrowed light doesn't last. Divinity is not a design, hence it can't be copied. It's a real frequency that comes from being real. That's what makes you unique. You didn't create your aura so others would appreciate it. You made it to stay alive. It's not arrogant to know why people replicate your tone and timing, but never quite equal your intensity. It's being conscious. They're making the sound you make, but you're the one who made it. Number 5. They look at you, yet you move like a ghost. People assume they can understand you by seeing what you do. They look at your habits, decisions, and even when you don't say anything, to attempt to figure out what you're going to do next. Like you're playing a game they can see, but you don't just act on reasoning. You move based on advice. You don't stick to rules. You go with the flow. That's why no one can really find you. 1 second you're stationary, and the next you're moving in a way that makes no sense to anybody except you. You move because you agree with something, not because you want to. They keep looking for patterns, but you don't exist in cycles. You live through the seasons. You know when to show up, when to be quiet, when to go on, and when to let go. Your compass isn't outside of you. Thus, nothing about you is predictable. You don't go after chances. You can feel them. You don't respond to stress. You react to purpose. And that's what makes it hard for the people who are trying to learn about you. They want to hear it again, but your route constantly changing because of what you learn. People think it's a mystery when your steps are guided by your gut. They believe you're hiding, but you're simply listening. You've learned that mobility doesn't necessarily imply moving. It might signify being motionless. Sometimes vanishing doesn't mean running away. It's becoming clear again. That's why it's so hard to find you. You're not leaving any clues. You're making vibrations, and not everyone can sense them. They say it's inconsistency, but it's evolution. You don't remain in situations where your energy doesn't feed anymore. You don't say why you're leaving or when you're coming. You only move when spirit tells you to. By the time they figure out what changed, you've already changed into a different person. That's why they can't catch you. You aren't playing the game. You're going with the flow. You aren't running away from them. You're getting higher and higher. Sixth, every report comes back with questions. They constantly trying to figure you out like you're a puzzle they need to solve. They want facts, data, and explanations, something that makes sense of why you have the energy you have. But every time someone attempts to put you in a box, they wind up more confused than before. Because you don't just utilize reasoning. You move from depth. You don't live by the facts. You live by how often, and you can't put frequency on a graph. They want to see how peaceful you are, but they can't figure out where it comes from. They try to figure out where your confidence comes from, but they can't. You don't feed into their categories, since your power doesn't originate from what others can see. It originates from what's within of you. Attention, approval, or control don't make you who you are. You are supported by something holy, that inner peace that can't be faked. And that's precisely what makes them scratch their heads. They send people to watch, hoping to see a trend, but what they discover is being there. They scribble down notes, but none of them explain why your quiet speaks louder than words, or why your energy fills a room even when you don't say anything. They search for ways to do things, but you live for significance. They want everything to be in order, but you go with the flow. They seek to know what causes things to happen, but all they discover is what things are. That's why every report concludes with bewilderment. You can't quantify alignment. You can only feel it. You can write down purpose. You can only see it. You show that certain things can't be examined. You have to go through them. So while they're attempting to figure you out, they wind up figuring themselves out instead, because data can write down the truth. It changes you from the inside out. And that's precisely what you do to them. 7. You are their example of awareness. You become their unspoken experiment, the live evidence that there is something they can't control, predict, or explain. They get specialists, people who are skeptical, and others who are just watching to attempt to break you down into reasoning. They look at your decisions, your strength, and your tranquility as if there must be some secret formula behind it. But the fact is that alignment is what drives you, and they can't measure it. You aren't getting by on luck or chance. You are led by a goal, and purpose doesn't feed into charts, theories, or studies that analyze things. They want to know how you keep getting back up after every fall, how you maintain calm in the middle of pandemonium, and how your gut feeling always appears to be one step ahead. But that's what makes people confused. You're not using your brain. You're acting out of awareness. You listen to yourself in a world that only believes what it can see. You act on your beliefs, whereas everyone else acts on their calculations. They are observing a person, being led by something they can't program, which makes their rationale fall apart. Social, psychological, and even spiritual systems that are based on control depend on being able to foresee what will happen. They require patterns to stay in charge. But you're different. You don't react the way they want you to. You don't give in when things become tough. You don't ask for permission to be real. You've broken free from the cycle of manipulation and lack, which makes you unpredictable and consequently impossible to manage. That's why they keep an eye on you. You are evidence that being conscious of your own thoughts and feelings is stronger than outside systems. You are what science and structure can duplicate. Self-realization. You are proof that a person who is in line with their purpose works on a higher frequency that can't be changed or distorted. And it scares them because it implies that all of their rules, pressure, and power games fall apart as soon as someone wakes up. You're not their topic. You're their quiet proof that awareness always triumphs. 8. Their curiosity is really simply dread in disguise. They claim they're simply inquisitive about you, interested, intrigued, and seeking to know what makes you unique. But deep down, it's not respect that drives them. It hurts. Your energy makes people feel uneasy. They are scared because you don't meet their definitions. So, people pretend to be interested while they are really scared. They don't want to develop with you. They want to find out how to get rid of what they can't manage. It's not love of the truth. They are afraid of authority they can't claim. You can tell they're tense when they ask you questions. They're not listening to make a connection. They're listening to cut apart. They try to identify the defect, the weakness, the catch that explains why you can walk in peace, while they are always at battle with themselves. But they never find it because your ego doesn't make you stable. It comes from being grounded. You don't want to be strong. You're just in line. And that's what they can deal with. They want to keep you from being free. Freedom questions every false idea they've used to define who they are. You show that someone can live without needing approval. do well without asking for it, and do well without giving up. That's scary for anyone who needs to feel safe by controlling, manipulating, or following rules. They'd rather look at your light than think about why they turned theirs off. They poke, ask questions, and follow, hoping to find a limit, but there isn't one. You move like air, which I can feel but not hold. They keep trying because they're scared, but your essence keeps slipping through their fingers because you can't measure, manage, or copy something that is infinite. You weren't supposed to feed into their comfort zones, and the more they try to keep you from being free, the more they have to face the truth that scares them. That your existence alone is proof that freedom is possible. 9. They can catch something that's already free. People try to control things they don't understand, and you become a problem for their way of getting people to do what they want. They can control you like they do other people, because you don't need the same things they use as bait, like approval, attention, or a sense of belonging. They watch you, test you, and even try to get you angry, so they can use your reaction to define or discredit you. But they can hurt you because you're still. You don't go after arguments, praise, or validation. You've grown out of the emotional games that most people play. That's why their spying never works. They think that watching what someone does gives them power. But your power isn't in moving around. It lives in the state. You act based on vibration, not reaction. You don't get pulled into chaos, because you know that your energy is your most important boundary. They send people to watch, but all they see is someone who won't do what they're told. You don't fight for space. You are space. You don't fight for peace. You are peace. You don't need their systems to prove your worth anymore, so they can trap you. You became untouchable the moment you stopped needing to be understood. You stopped fighting with people's projections and chose to be present instead. They can't figure out that language, stillness. Your freedom isn't a rebellion. It's an awakening. You know that you don't have to explain yourself to everyone all the time or be open about your feelings. You learned that not every fight is worth your time, and not every silence needs to be broken. You don't act on impulse. You move with purpose, and that's why they can guess, start, or take you. They think freedom is about being far away, but yours is about being free from control, not from life. You move through the world without being bothered, bowed, or owned, and that's why they can catch you. You can't keep someone in a cage if they don't need your approval anymore. You've already escaped the only prison that ever mattered, needing to be understood. Number 10. They thought you were acting, but then they saw that you were living your truth. People think you're acting at first. They think that your calmness is planned, your confidence is practiced, and your silence is planned. They've seen so many fake people that they now think that being real is strange. So when someone like you comes across as grounded, pure, and at peace with who you are, people start to look for a hidden agenda. They don't get that some people aren't doing their jobs. They've just finally become real. You're not trying to impress anyone or play a character that fits society's script. You've outgrown the need for validation because you've already met yourself. That level of self-awareness unsettles those who still build their identity around perception. They expect manipulation, not honesty. They expect strategy, not sincerity. And when they realize that what they thought was a persona is actually your presence, it shakes their sense of reality. Your stillness is what exposes them. You don't compete for attention or argue to prove your worth. You simply exist in truth, and that's powerful in a world addicted to pretense. People used to constant performance can handle genuine energy. It doesn't play by their rules. They're used to people who act humble to look wise or act kind to gain leverage. But you don't act, you embody. You live by alignment, not appearance. Eventually, they start to see the difference. They notice your consistency, your peace that doesn't waver when no one's watching. They realize that your words match your energy and your actions match your values. That's when it hits them. This isn't performance. This is principle. You're not pretending to be strong. You've simply healed. You're not detached. You're disciplined. And that's what truly disarms them. Realizing that while everyone else is auditioning for roles, you've already accepted your truth. You're not playing a part in their world. You've built your own stage, and you stand on it without pretending. Number 11. They come for answers, but leave with reverence. People approach you with all kinds of intentions: curiosity, doubt, even quiet competition. They come armed with questions, ready to analyze you, to challenge you, to find the cracks in your calm. They expect to meet another person playing wise, pretending grounded, wearing peace-like fashion. But that's not what they find. What they meet instead is truth. Raw, quiet, unpolished truth. And it shakes them in a way they can't quite explain. You don't try to convince anyone of who you are. You don't over-explain or perform your depth. You let your energy speak, and that alone does the work. Something about your presence versus reflection. People realize mid-conversation that they're not just talking to you. They're hearing themselves more clearly than ever before. Your energy doesn't just fill space, it rearranges it. That's why no one leaves you the same. Even those who come to test you end up humbled. They sense a calm they can't imitate, a certainty that doesn't come from ego. You carry the kind of balance that can't be faked because it's been earned through breaking, healing, and returning to self. And that's what disarms them. They came for answers about you but end up finding revelations about themselves. You become a mirror, but one that reflects possibility instead of pain. That's why so many can't explain their encounters with you. Because what they experienced wasn't just conversation, it was consciousness. They felt seen without being judged, challenged without being attacked, understood without needing to perform. That's a sacred exchange, and it leaves an imprint. They entered as observers but left as believers, not in you as a person, but in the reality of energy, alignment, and truth, because authenticity has a frequency that can't be denied. And once someone feels it, they never forget it. They came searching for evidence, but what they found was presence, and that changed everything. Number 12. They realize you're not guarded, you're guided. People often mistake your silence for secrecy. They assume you're hiding something, being overly private, or trying to stay mysterious. But what they fail to see is that your quietness isn't about fear, it's about respect. You've learned that not every part of your journey deserves an audience. What they interpret as walls are actually boundaries, and those boundaries were built through wisdom, not wounds. You're not guarded to protect your ego, you're guided to protect your purpose. You've discovered that energy is sacred. Not every revelation deserves a reaction, and not every vision deserves validation. You move differently because you've seen how oversharing can invite confusion, how speaking too soon can drain divine timing. So you speak when led, not when pressured. You reveal when aligned, not when expected. That kind of discipline confuses people who are used to impulsive living. They think you're withholding, but really you're waiting on instruction, and that patience is your power. Your choices are not random, they're rooted in something higher than logic. You don't move to prove, you move with purpose. Every step you take is intentional, even when others don't understand it. You've reached a level of trust with your intuition, where silence isn't avoidance, it's obedience. You don't rush to explain, because your clarity doesn't need confirmation. And slowly, people begin to notice. They see how your timing always seems divine, how everything you touch unfolds smoothly, even when it looked delayed. That's when it clicks for them. You're not cautious, you're connected. You don't move from fear of loss, but from faith in alignment. You're not protecting secrets, you're protecting sacred instructions. They came expecting mystery, but found mastery, because the truth is, you're not hiding anything. You're simply moving with divine rhythm. You're not guarded, you're guided, and that makes all the difference. Number 13. They find power, but not the kind they expected. People come toward you expecting a contest, some kind of power struggle where one must outshine or outsmart the other. They're used to power looking loud, demanding, and controlling. So when they meet you, they brace themselves for ego. They expect strategy, manipulation, or intimidation, but instead, they find calm, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice to be felt. It throws them off balance because you carry authority without aggression. You don't need to dominate people to prove strength. Your peace is the proof. You've outgrown the version of power that feeds on control. You've learned that true power isn't about being above anyone. It's about being aligned within yourself. That's why your presence feels steady, not forceful. You don't try to take from others. You elevate the space you enter. You don't push energy, you redirect it. And that's what unsettles those who measure power through hierarchy. You remind them that influence doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and still, everything shifts. They come expecting competition but end up feeling conviction. Your power isn't in your words, it's in your energy. You don't conquer through fear, you transform through presence. Even without trying, you convert tension into understanding. chaos into clarity, and ego into awareness. That's a kind of power most people can't comprehend because it's not performance, it's vibration. Soon they start realizing you're not trying to win anything. You're not after control. You're after consciousness. Your strength doesn't come from overpowering people. It comes from mastering yourself. You've learned how to move through life without letting life move through you. And that's what they didn't expect. They came looking for tactics but found truth. They came to test your will but found peace that can't be shaken. Because the real power isn't in dominance, it's in direction. You don't conquer people, you convert energy. Number 14. They finally admit you're not the target, you're the test. By the time people realize what's happening, it's too late. They came thinking they were observing you, analyzing you, maybe even trying to find leverage. They assumed the spotlight was on your moves, your decisions, your energy. But the truth is, you were never the subject of scrutiny. They were. Every person sent your way becomes a mirror of their own consciousness. Your presence tests patience, clarity, and integrity in ways they don't understand. They believe they are the hunters, but in reality, they are being measured. Your energy doesn't just exist, it reflects. It shows them what they carry inside: honesty or deceit, alignment or distraction, fear or courage. No words are necessary. You don't have to expose them, confront them, or manipulate them. Their response to your light does the work for you. They reveal themselves simply by being in your orbit. Some crumble under the pressure of authenticity. Some rise to meet it, and some leave silently aware that they weren't ready for what they came to witness. This isn't arrogance, it's inevitability. People come across certain frequencies that make them face truths they've been avoiding for a long time. Your clarity is the test they never asked for. You don't chase, bother, or plan. You move out of alignment, and your energy becomes a standard. Their ability to be honest about it shows them exactly where they are, in their shadow or in their light. People who come back with reports, stories, and analysis don't understand the lesson. They think you were the target, but everyone knows that the real test isn't on your life, it's theirs. The real report cards are their goals, reactions, and compromises. And when they finally admit it, they leave with either understanding, humility, or sometimes a quiet respect. You were never the puzzle to figure out. You were the one who helps them see who they really are. In conclusion, there is no denying what all of this shows. Being chosen doesn't mean being secretive or better than others. It's all about getting things in line. Every observer, every skeptic, and every person sent to study you ends up facing a truth they weren't ready for. They think they're watching you, but you're really watching them. You move with purpose, answer clearly, and have a presence that can't be copied or contained. Not only does your energy have an effect, it also changes things.